Okay, so we are on direct officer. So direct officer is one of the three pressures. Direct officer has three key functions, and direct officer, of course, would be considered to be auspicious. So as it is auspicious, direct officer denote power, it denotes promotion, official status, it denotes children, and it denotes husband for the female day master. Therefore, with all this, it is definitely considered to be one of the more favorable, what it is definitely a very, very favorable star to look at. Right, so as we go along, let us now move on to cover what we've done into the last one. So we have explored, looking into direct officer, what does it represents, or maybe just to do a bit of a quick recap before we come on to today's part. Yeah. Okay. So has a very quick part as we run through. To the male, it represents the children. To the woman, it represents the husband. And to your career, it represents your bosses. It represents reading of the judge or anyone who restrain you. And so for divinity, as we read, it may also represent education. It represents disasters and catastrophe as well, especially when we find excessive direct officers or direct officers to which one may find clashes. And also we can see that direct officer will control the rock wealth and therefore has a clash with the rock wealth. Direct officer may be a reading adverse to brothers and sisters. And so in a way, that would be just how we can also explore what direct officer would actually means. Okay, so in every part, the characteristics of a direct officer is one that is controlled, one that is moral, righteous, one that, of course, respects the law and governing society. So this will be the thing that direct officer will look at. So as we explore what are the key characteristics of a direct officer. So in a way, you can trust a direct officer if you find that the direct officer is favorable and appropriately strengthened. So therefore, a direct officer is honorable, righteous. So you can find judges, diplomats, you can find lawyers, or people who are within the domain of legal practice. These are the principles that they hold righteous. And so one that is a direct officer is one that is law abiding. But when it becomes negative, then it becomes a dictator. Because a direct officer wants to control. A direct officer is controlling. Just like seven killing. Seven killing controls with physical force. Seven killing forces you. And direct officer uh, provide rules and regulations. So in a way, both tries to control you, and direct officer would control as a dictator by using laws. So therefore, in that case, they become inflexible and they become very conservative and they also do not want to make decisions. And so therefore, direct officer, when it is negative, can be dictatorial. And so here we find, as we explore where direct officers are in a natal chart, we have gone through many rounds already, so we will know where it would lie. So we will normally see whether it will be sitting on the stems. Therefore, when it sits on the stem, direct officers would be visible, and that would represent your career. Okay, so we look into a few things, of course, your facade, your structure, and also the month stem itself for that career part. Okay, then we also, as we explore the next part, then when we look into all the reading, these are all from past reading for the last two sessions. It's quite a bit of a lengthy as well. Then we of course look into again the counting of your direct officers. And when we do look into excessive direct officers, we do consider that it behaves just like seven killing. It may introduce health related problems. And so now we will move on to today's sharing as we explore direct officer in the natal chart or meeting direct officer when we explore where it is. Okay, so now as we move on to our third session, let's explore officers in health. Now, health, we normally look at resource. Health is normally a resource element. And therefore, when we look into officer for health, we would normally denote that we are looking into, again, how the direct officer produces the wealth. And so from our so-called chart here, can of course say that direct officer produces. Direct officer produces resource and resource produces self. Therefore, when we look into health, we normally look into resource. Now, resource usually more often than not denote physical health. So when we look into health, physical health, has in medical related health. But when we look into officer, more often than not, we look into mental health. Mental health. Because in a way, the officer restrains the self, and therefore self normally results in character, results in behavior, discipline. Therefore, it's about mental health. And so here, in a way, officer produces resource that produces a self. We can also look into officer health. And we also see the reading because officer restrains the self. And in the concept of health, restraining is crucially important because if you look into things like cancer, cancer grows, no? Cancer grows. And so if cancer grows, which would be the more dangerous type of SARS for growth-related illnesses? Do we want to look for growth stars? Do we want to look for peach blossom? Or do we want to look for graveyard? So of all the stars that we have, the growth stars, the peach blossom stars, or the graveyards, where would we be more worried about the hidden chi if it is unfavorable? And therefore, for growth-related problems, cancer, for example, or any other things that grow in the body, and therefore that would be somehow the negative elements. So direct officer restrains, direct officer restrains. And there is also another element where we say that the officer weakens the wealth. Now there is a saying as we covered wealth that too much wealth destroys the health because wealth counters the resource. And therefore officer weakens the wealth and prevents the wealth from clashing against the resource. And therefore officer produces the resource and counters wealth or counters the element that goes against or clash against resource. And therefore officer plays the role. So here we will see that we find where the officer sits. And so as we look into officer and health, we also refers to hurting officer. Hurting officer is also officer. And therefore here, there are few things in mind. What will be negative when we look into direct officer? One calamitous effect is, of course, hurting officer. So as we discussed earlier in the hurting officer sessions. So hurting officer meeting direct officer calamity. Calamity. Direct officer meeting officer, that will be the hurting officer. Therefore, hurting officer clashes against. And so when we say officer, we would mean two types of officers, which of course can denote both your hurting officer and also your direct officer. Right? So these are the two as it is. So often, as we mentioned earlier, hurting officer meeting direct officer is calamity. Calamity. Therefore, that would be one of the disastrous clashes of the elements. In a way, it's a clash. So you can see that there is. All right. And so it clashes away. So when hurting officer clashes direct officer away, then the day master loses the benefit of the direct officer. Therefore, it loses the restraints. So it can become a problem. All right. So usually we read officers to be related to mental rather than physical. But physical, it can be about the same as well. Now, again, we also consider since direct officer represents children, missing direct officer would that mean missing the affinity to have children? So therefore, for male direct day masters, then this may also represent fertility-related health issues. Therefore, without the affinity may also mean more difficult to have children. So we can look into that way of reading it the same as well. All right, so again, as we try to explore, officers shouldn't be too strong. And if officer is too strong, the restraint is too excessive, there can be problems that may lead to physical health. So we can see that. So usually it may be considered that it may be a mental, eventually it may lead to a mental issue when the officer is too weak. So how can we try to relate? Now again, when we say health, we refer to physical health. And so when we have a weak officer, we can then say that we may have very weak discipline. And I wouldn't know whether you agree with me or not. We may consider that many people that I talk to, many people that comes in to relate that today's modern day, one of the modern day illnesses or health related problems, especially for countries that are blessed with abundance of resources, the problem, of course, that we have is that many of us may be overweight, overweight. And so we find that in the US or even in Malaysia, high percentage of obesity, overweight. Now, of course, I'm not trying to simplify the issue of obesity, not in this topic today, but I believe that a slice of truth in obesity, in overweight, may lie into that there are, of course, many contributing factors in this complex issue, but I wouldn't know whether you agree with me or not, that to a certain degree, the signs of losing weight to be healthy generally is easy. Eat less, exercise more. So what is the contributing problem? Sometimes it can be just a lack of discipline, lack of self-control. It's easily said than done, but generally, even behavioral scientists have come to agree or come to concur that lack of self-control, lack of discipline. What to do? We manufacture our food to be too tasty, and therefore that would be so. So therefore, this may be the signature that weak officer contributing to poor health. That means the root of the problem. So the root of the problem is lack of discipline rather than the physical phenomena itself. So we want to look at it in this manner. So therefore to diagnose. Especially when there's no absence of cosmic flow in this particular light. Okay, so here, as we come on, that's where we want to monitor or look. Now here we also see that there is a bit of a role to play. We take run water day master. So of all the 10 gods, of all the 10 elements, run water dislike their direct officer. What is the direct officer for run water? Who is, which element is the direct officer of a run water day master? That would be the Chi Earth. Correct, huh? Just see Chi Earth. So the Chi Earth is the direct officer. And the thing about Chi Earth is that water does not welcome Earth because water is contaminated. And so water contamination, Earth contaminates water, denotes bladder, urinary, and also cancerous because it represents dirty water, dirty blood. So dirty blood, dirty water, cancerous illnesses. And therefore, of all the 10 day masters, run water dislike its direct officer. Many more welcome direct officer. Which day master welcomes the direct officer the most? Which one welcomes the most? More often than not, the Keng day master. The Keng day master welcomes the direct officer the most. Who is the direct officer to the Keng day master? The Ting day master, the Ting fire. So the Ting fire brings warmth to the Keng day master because cold metal is lung-related illnesses. And Keng day master wants the metal needs to be forged with fire. And so Keng day master would be powerful after a baptism of fire. And therefore that's where the Keng day master welcomes a Ting fire. So in a way, if you see young people, children, Keng day master children, it's best to get them to work, get them to seek employment as of early years of formation. And of course, if it is Keng day master, a lady, then of course getting a job or getting a boss, because that is where the direct officer is the thing for you. All right, so therefore here, Keng day master, yeah, seeking employment would be a good start. Rainwater, not too long, so water people don't stay. Yes, we look into a run water day master. So now let's take a look into the chart of one person, Sanjay Dutt. Now Sanjay Dutt would be very popular in Bollywood, one of the famous celebrity of previous year, but still now at the advanced age. And so here we look into Sanjay. And let's start off first by looking into the naval chart. So Sanjay is a run water day master, born in July, born in summer. So run water day master born in summer is weak. Is weak. It is rooted. You can find rooting for this day master. It is rooted in the peak, which is far away, but it sits on water, and therefore at least it has some strength. Okay, so therefore here, red waters and born in the year of the jihad, which is the fasa, will be the direct officer. Therefore, we have a facade that is a direct officer, and of course, the structure is a direct officer. And so here, it will be understood that it has a very strong direct officer. So this is a weekday master with strong direct officer and a strong G of day master. All right. And so as we consider this, of course, it has a very strong structure, and and to this part, it may then foretell that it may contribute to a certain a certain. But anyway, in terms of Shensha, we can also find that the goat represents the talent star to the day master. So therefore this day master is blessed with a talent star, Huakai, in the case of the month. So would likely to be able to utilize the power to do that. Okay, so now we want to explore a few things. Now, actually, there are two stories here I can tell. The story that I want to tell, of course, will be health, since the topic is health. But there is also another element we want to consider. Uh, okay, maybe there are three things here I want to look at. Maybe let's clear the unrelated one first. The unrelated one first, of course, is the career or even general. Now, direct officer does not like to see of all the 10 elements, which one direct officer does not welcome? Which one is the arch enemy or the mortal enemy to the direct officer? And of course, we can find that a direct officer does not want to meet hurting officer. Direct officer does not want to meet hurting officer. Direct officer also doesn't really welcome 7 killing. 7 killing, direct officer has a confusion. So 7K DO confusion can come in. And then, of course, after the 7K, there is a hurting office. So in a way, we can see that the flow of this is a reverse flow. This is a reverse flow. It's a reverse flow for this yang, because this is a male. It's a male and a yang day master. So male and yang day master, the luck cycle is reverse. And because it is reverse, the 7K comes first before the hurting officer. 7K comes first because the luck cycle is reversed. If it's the other way around, then story would be a bit different. Yeah, it can be a bit different. To see which comes first. So 7K confusion comes first. The 7K DO confusion comes first. The confusion is here that leads to the hurting officer. This is a series of luck that is going to expose the person to a very risky environment. If it's the other way around, not so bad. I mean, you get hurt first before you get confused is different. Here, you get confused first, then you get hurt. Then it is even more problematic. Okay, so anyway, 7K confusion comes in. So therefore, this pillar will be something that confuses him. We will talk a bit more about this confusion. I think we have discussed earlier. And of course, the issue is in this confusion, we can find that in 1993, he was arrested and convicted. Arrested and convicted in relation to something similar to terrorism in the 1993 Bombay bombings. So he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. That was in 1993. Yeah, 1993. Therefore, this was a scenario where in a way, to the luck pillar, he was arrested. He was arrested here. And then, of course, legal process court cases will come in. And he was subsequently then sentenced to jail and a hurting officer meeting the direct officer. Therefore, but of course here, Sanjay's direct officer is excessive. It is strong. It is dominant. So having a dominant direct officer, the luck pillars that comes in, the clashes will be stronger because of the presence of the direct officer meeting the hurting officer. All right. So anyway, that is actually not related to health, but somehow I just want to bring it up in order to relate to the topic here that we have today. All right, now the second part that we want to look at for health, let's take a look into the month that Sanjay is born in. Of all, now if you look into classical or ancient birthing rates, of all the 12 zodiac animals, which animal, which the Chinese traditionally, maybe not so today, but in the past, of all the 12 animals, which animal tends to have the lowest birth rates? Not dragon. Next year's birth rate is expected to increase. What is next year's birth rate? Next year's birth rate will be, next year will be the dragon. Therefore, traditionally, children, parents like dragons. Parents, they like dragon babies, they like tiger babies. And what do they don't like? Okay, Pikpui, you mentioned ox. Not wrong, not wrong. But ox is second. Ox is actually second. The one that would be most disliked of all the 12 animals is actually the goat. The goat. Somehow, for whatever reasons, the goat is an animal that seems to be disliked when it comes to metaphysics. We even have the word called scapegoat, isn't it? The word scapegoat, being scapegoated. Or even in the goat bears the sin. Okay, so anyway, one part of the goat, why, if you look into the goat, and having said that, I also share with you two articles. Now, this one got nothing to do with metaphysics. This is a medical journal that has performed data analysis on 1.7 million people who are born during a 100-year period, and they perform some statistical analysis on 1.7 million samples and to correlate them against the birth month to see whether or not if anyone born in certain month would have certain illnesses, whether there's certain correlations or likewise. And therefore here in this article that is shared, it so appears that over 1.7 million sample, over 100 years of analysis, yes, to them they find that there are many illnesses and some of them seems to have some strong correlation with a so-called department. Now again, this is not metaphysics. This is medical research. Medical research. But I try to bring it down to metaphysics. I try to associate this article. Of course, this article got nothing to do with metaphysics, but at least we see that when you talk about people born in certain months, then metaphysics comes to play. Now, Western astrology centers on your sun sign, whether you are Libra or Aries, or whether you are Sagittarius. And so when Western zodiac astrology looks into the sun sign, they are more or less asking the question, which month are you born in? Which month are you born? But here in Chinese metaphysics, we don't just look into which month you're born in. We also look into traditionally the year, and now we also look into the day. But let's take a look into the month, shall we? Because the month represents your year represents your childhood, your month represents your prime years. Your prime years when you enter into society. But anyway, let's just consider why the goat is not favorable, or the graveyard stars are not generally favorable. Now, this is the goat month, as you can see that. And can you see or not? Can you see within the good man? Can you see three hidden stems? What relationships can you find that we just talked about just now? Ah, that is right. Huh? You saw it right. Huh? Mm. Therefore, but of course, this one is only for rainwater. Lah, huh? So in a way, you can then summarize a bit more detail. Huh? Rainwater day master. Huh? So rainwater day master. Every time they have goat, no? Every time they see goat, when rainwater sees goat, there is an embedded no? Graveyard of hidden officer meeting direct officer. Therefore, embedded. So that is where the graveyard stars carry signatures of illnesses. Huh? Captures the illnesses that we have. Not all of them, but it's just a matter of looking into this, huh? As it is. I mean, for example, in this medical report, people born in the month of January. What month is January to us? What is our January month? January is which month in the animal zodiac? January. What is January? Uh, Ox. Therefore, graveyard. Therefore, we can find that the ox, hypertension, that comes into place. That comes in. Can also find that the certain months as well. Okay, so anyway, this is looking to and to and for dragon. Dragon is which month? Dragon for dragon. Dragon is April. So April. So April where we have your angina, chest pain, and so on. Yeah, as it is. Okay, so anyway, this is just a little bit more. So of course, there are also other illnesses that are highly correlated, very correlated, especially also for those who are born somewhere in February and March. We also find some other illnesses along the. Okay, so when it comes to water during the months of November, December, mental illnesses, ADHD tends to feature strong. People tend to be a bit more moody. But anyway, with increasing use of machine learning and data science, we can able to now cross validate most of the birth dates. We can now able to calculate birth dates in a more manner along the line. Okay, so some of them validate or verify some of the issues that we cover. And when we look into hurting officer meeting direct officer. So we might find some of these also relevant in looking at graveyard charts itself. But anyway, so red water having tends to have an innate challenge by itself. Okay, so for this Sanjay, he was diagnosed with lung cancer in the year 2020. So stage 3 lung cancer in the year 2020. So 2020 lung, as in Keng metal represents the lung. And of course, in a way, this is a direct officer, luck pillar. So having direct officer luck pillar with the arrival of direct officer meeting. And furthermore, of course, when Earth makes Earth, we also find that the ox clashes with the goat. The ox clashes with the goat. So in this context, we can also see that the clash comes in, and the clash somehow uh, brings things that clash away the illnesses. Because why? Because direct officer controls your day master. When the things that control you are clashed away, that's the reading for illnesses, yeah, to a certain degree. Okay, so anyway, that's where we consider that look into officers in health. But once again, it pertains more to mental health. But somehow, when we find that it may also pertain to to the so-called your physical health, about the same as well. Yeah, as it is, especially when resource is weak, or when there's absence of a resource. And here we find that the resource is also very weak. So direct officer is very strong. Once that happens, then illnesses can come in as well. All right, so now as we move on to direct officers in career. Direct officers in career, usually direct officer, you see promotion. You see direct officer, you see formal qualifications. Therefore, you see degrees and examinations, and increase in status, passing exam. So young day masters, students would welcome direct officer luck pillar, which actually enhance their academic luck that comes in as well. Okay, so as we go along, we're going to see how how each of them, when it becomes the officer, how it becomes officer. Now we take a as we run through one by one very quickly. Number one is that when wood is officer. Now, if the wood is the officer, what day master are we looking at? Earth day master, isn't it? Wood controls earth. So therefore, when wood is the officer, we are dealing with earth day masters. Therefore, wood controlling earth is favorable. Wood controlling earth may be favorable. So because here, because why? Because earth needs the wood. Earth needs the wood to hold itself against water. Therefore, this will be where earth will be washed away if earth is not contained. So wood contains the earth. Therefore, wood as an officer is welcome. And therefore, the reading tends to be higher, as in higher rank, cautious. Now, when fire is the officer, I think we just talked about this just now. When fire is the officer, then what day master are we referring to? If fire is the day is the officer, then we're referring to metal day master. Metal day master. And so, in a way, metal is the element that kills. Metal can be sometimes also very cruel. Gangsters, in a way, metal. So therefore here the adequate level of fire. So therefore, earlier I mentioned that Keng metal, not Sin metal. Sin metal doesn't like officer. Sin metal cannot take officer. When Sin metal meets too much officer, it's burnt. And sin metal tends to be related to sexual. This sexually violence can be sin metal people. So sin metal see fire can excessive fire can be burnt. Keng metal welcomes. Keng metal will take it better to be forged. All right, when earth is the officer, then we are dealing with water disaster. Water disaster. But of course, rainwater welcomes Wu Earth. So rainwater welcomes Wu Earth. The mountain, the stone. Therefore, rainwater needs the Wu Earth to be contained. Otherwise, the water will be dispersed everywhere. And so it doesn't take shape. So rainwater welcomes Wu Earth, doesn't welcome Chi Earth. So is Kui water. Kui water also welcomes Wu Earth. Kui water also doesn't welcome Chi Earth. And Chi Earth people tends to talk a lot. That's why water people don't like Chi Earth people, because they don't like the output of what a Chi Earth Day Master has to say. It tends to be annoying for them. So anyway, so in a way, they would then find that if they do have their 7 killing, then they'll be more stable, and then it'll be more clever. All right, metal. So if you have a metal as an officer, then yep, you're looking into wood day master. And in a way, wood, it depends on whether it is live wood or dried wood. Dried wood welcomes metal because when the wood is dry and the wood is dead, metal sharpens the wood to become spears and arrows, to become furniture, to become useful. So wood becomes useful if it is dry. But if it is wet, that means it is live. Then it will be painful. Chia earth, especially chia wood. Chia wood are very thick skin. Chia wood has a bit of a listening problem. And therefore, the metal, that is the axe, becoming too brutal to the wood hurts the feelings. Because the metal being officer can be merciless, can be too strong, and if the wood is wet, the wood feels the pain of restraint. If a knife cuts a live wood, it's painful. All right, so therefore here, wet or dry, of course, is to look at the season, whether it's summer or winter. So obviously, if wood is born in winter or spring, wood is wet. So wet wood means we're dealing with winter and spring. And here, naturally, would be then summer and autumn. All right. Therefore, wood born in summer and autumn welcomes metal. Wood born in winter and spring does not so much as it is. And this kind of control represents a bit more confined, a bit more. But nonetheless, there will be where we can consider the welcoming of wood. We've got an officer that comes in. Okay, now if water is the officer, if the water officer, now we're dealing with the fire day master. A fire day master like Ting day master. Ting day master welcomes Ren because there's an affinity of combination. Ren and Ting combines together, correct, to form. Therefore, they are harmonious and candlelight. A candlelight, the power of the candle illuminates and multiply when they see their reflection on the river, on the ocean. Therefore, Ting welcomes Ren, especially for Ting fire born at night. So when Ting fire born at night, they welcome the Ren. They welcome the direct officer. Definitely, a Ting fire will not want to welcome the other water because rainwater, rainwater diminishes the candle. More so for Ting fire born during winter, when Ting fire is frail. Meeting snow would be hazardous, calamity. Therefore, the Ting welcomes the Rent also indicates that the Ting fire welcomes the direct officer. It welcomes its direct officer. So, and the Ren is also welcomed by the Ping fire. The Ping fire doesn't like Kuei water. So Ping fire doesn't like its direct officer either. Just like Ren water, Ping fire also doesn't like their direct officers because the cloud hides the the sun. And pink fire are very consistent people. So if you have a pink fire, if you are a pink fire day master, you are consistent. The sun rises consistently every morning. The sun sets consistently every night. Therefore, the pink fire is consistent. So they hate the Kuei water because the Kuei water is always busy, always traveling, always changing. Therefore, pink fire hates their bosses. They hate a boss that keeps changing the goalposts. They keep changing the goals and just and just it's just a clash of personality and character. When you like to have order, you don't like somebody who's fickle, who is keep changing. Therefore, that's where pink fire do not like their officers. All right, so now let's move on into looking into the one by one that we just also look into. So if we have the Yi Earth with the Keng, that is good. So therefore, this is harmonious. The Yi Day Master having a Keng boss, that would be quite good. Pink Fire with Kuei Water, in a way you can also find. Then Ting with the Ren. Ting and Ren can derive loyalty. Let's go. Wu and Yi is also not too bad. Yi and Jia is also good. Keng and Ting would be also nice. Sin and Bing would also be clever, but Sin and the Sin master with this one, if not careful, can also indicate sexual relations with boss. Because Sin and Sing and Ping combination also indicate lusty combination. Therefore, there can be also very lusty. And the sin also wants to shine, also welcome this kind of welcome the sun to illuminate its shiny features as well. Right. And of course, as mentioned, the rim doesn't like the Chi, and also does Kuei also do not welcome the wolf. So for this represents essence. Okay, now to the last part here as we look into the presence of 7K and direct officer. So 7K direct officer not welcome. Not welcome because confusion. Because direct officer is follow the law. 7K is break the law. And therefore, having 7K and direct officer together may be considered to be two-headed snake. So earlier on, we also look into if one is hidden, one is a protruded, as it is. Now, of course, here, if you have to advise somebody who has both, well, what to do? They have both. No? So, in a way, having both normally means not good to be a general, not good to be a boss, not good to be not good to be the decision maker, not good to be an army general, to set a military strategy, because the time of confusion may run the risk of making the wrong one. And then, what advice do we give? What remedy do we offer? We can't just tell them, look, you have DO7K confusion, so don't work. No, you can't say that. So in a way, in the today's modern time, okay, maybe in the ancient days, during the Ming dynasty and the Tang dynasty, people with this means they will not be recruited into the military, or they will not be promoted to army generals. If you're a direct officer, you get to go and you can go and do policy making, and if you're 7K, you are then the army general. Okay, but here in the today's world, we do have very, very large middle officers. So 7K would be very suitable, these are 7K DO, would be very suitable to be fitted into middle officers. Middle officers are not front office. Front office is like sales and marketing. Front office, you engage customers, you are in the battlefield. Back office, of course, is the reporting, the diplomat, the policy making. So middle office, audit, internal audit, financial risk management, compliance, fraud enforcement, fraud investigation. So now into today's regulated industry, we do have audit, internal audit, external audit, tax audit, financial risk management has profession, chief risk officer, compliance, fraud. And so why? Because in a way, the word middle office means they become the intermediary between the front office, the seven killing, and the back office, the direct officer. And therefore, those who sit in becomes a very, very useful player. Because why? Because they can interact with the 7K front office. Normally, 7K put them in the front office. Let them go and fight in the battlefield, meet customers, fight competitor. Then you put the direct officer at the back office. The back office will do policy making, reporting, accounting, and the check and so. All right, so therefore here, career advisors for those with 7K and direct officer confusion. And also they make very good, because they can see both sides. They can see both sides. They can see, they can respect the law, and they can also understand how the law is applicable in a practical form. So anyway, we do find that quite a good number of philosophers, good number of those who emphasize on justice, because direct officer is about justice. And so one of the more popular jurisprudence philosophers, John Rawls. So John Rawls, of course, will have this sign, therefore having both DO and 7K. Another one we find is Charles Taylor. So Charles Taylor, a Canadian philosopher, also very renowned, popular for justice, especially in the societal context. The direct officer is protruded to the ear. It is also rooted into the Sin Day Master, together with also, and also, of course, you can see here that it has this particular part, yeah? So focus on justice of the same as well. Then we also have Thomas Poch. Thomas Poch is a German philosopher. Also has analysis on global justice, where you also have that direct officer with a heavily virtue side itself as well. A bit, of course, hidden 7K on the other side as well. All right, so for here we see that direct officer, if it is a facade, if it is a structure, what do we recommend? What advice can we give? What remedy do we have? But many more often than not, it will be more often you might find that they have both, which of course in the past it may not be so welcome, but in today's world there are so many more varied and diverse roles to which these people can play a very successful career contributing based on the natal chart that you can find as well. All right, so there you go. So this would be the end of direct officer. So next week we will just do a bit of a market outlook, and then the next 10 God series will continue next year then. All right. So if there's no other questions, I'll see you around. Thank you for today.